Good afternoon. This is Mike Owen from Circyl, and you are joining the JumpStart Your Intranet webinar. So let's kick off. So just a few points to note around kind of webinar etiquette. If you cannot hear me at this point, you need to use the little gear icon and change your audio device. Also, we're going to keep webcams turned off. We're going to keep people muted. It's going to give us the kind of the best experience from a bandwidth perspective. But do feel free to ask questions in the chat window. We're going to try and address those questions at the end of the webinar. It's going to be recorded. You will get a link, so don't worry about that. We'll include the deck. We'll include some collateral, things like that. So I'm Mike Owen. I'm the head of business productivity at Circyl. You can reach me on the usual channels, email, LinkedIn, Twitter, but feel free to get in touch if you've got questions around the Intranet JumpStart, or if you've got questions around SharePoint or productivity or whatever else Circyl can do to help you. So Circyl has been around for just over a couple of years. We're a subsidiary of a larger managed service business called KISS Technology. We're a Microsoft partner, and we're experts in data integration, really. We kind of mainly focus on three core technologies. So that's SharePoint and Office 365, so all your collaborative workloads, including intranets. We also deal with Power BI for deep analytics into your data, for sort of understanding insights about the information that you hold on your systems. And thirdly, we also specialize in Microsoft Dynamics. And what we're seeing as business at the moment is that these three technologies are being more and more integrated by Microsoft, and every project that we are taking on at the moment seems to have a bit of everything in the mix here, whether it starts out as a Dynamics project with some dashboards built in, or it starts out as a SharePoint project that ends up sort of being a mixture of all three platforms. So that's kind of who we are and what we do. Now, into the actual kind of content then. So we're really here to talk about intranets. So we've all got intranets because we really want to communicate with our business. So with working from home being more and more prominent, and businesses asking people to do so, or maybe we've got a bring your own device to work scheme, things like that, we really need to make sure that our intranet is fit for purpose. So those businesses where we have intranets, they really thrive because people within them start to feel more engaged, they feel better connected, they're better informed, they understand what's going on within the business, they don't feel left out. So we always create these intranets in the hope that people are going to consume information. So I guess you're going to recognize some of these scenarios where we end up sending all user emails, or we can't find the right content, or there's a lot of content, but it's out of date. So the common scenarios here, or the common issues really, is that your intranets aren't fully adopted by the business. You end up sending news out via email and maybe put it on the intranet as well. Or we've got documents on file shares, but legacy file shares are notoriously hard to try and find content on, never mind the right version, because you've inevitably got documents that are sort of version 1, version 2, version 2 final, things like that. So how do we make better use of those documents? How can we make them readily available to everybody? We also create intranets kind of like broadsheet newspapers. So regardless of my department or my role or my geographic location, I'm going to see all of the information that we have on the intranet. Now, what happens if I work in the Scotland office, but I'm seeing a lot of content from the London office? It's not really applicable to me. So I become disengaged because of that reason. We also see a lot of intranets that are really static. They just don't change. There's intranets that I've seen where the homepage is the same as the day it was deployed, and very little seems to change. So as an end user, I've got very little reason to actually go back to my intranet because, well, I kind of know what it's going to look like. The other thing is that a lot of intranets are only really available in the office, and that's not really good unless we've got a mobile device strategy where I can use something like direct access and log into my environment regardless of where I am. But if I'm a salesperson out on the road and I've got a mobile in my hand and I want to catch up on the latest news, I can't do that unless I get my laptop out, connect to a hotspot. You know the story. It's cumbersome. So how can we actually deal with these issues? How can we make our intranet work better for us? So let's look at those fixing the problems, right? To really sort of make to really bring people to the intranet time and again, we can do certain things from an IT infrastructure perspective. We could set the browser as the home page to the intranet, and I'm sure many people have done that, but you still find that the intranet's not truly adopted. That homepage then becomes a bit of a barrier to actually go and get to the BBC News or to get your sports results or whatever it is. So we're not getting adoption, even though as corporate IT, we've set your homepage to the intranet. So what we need to do is to try and make the intranet the only authoritative source of news and documents in the business. We need to do drastic actions for this though, because the biggest change in a business is not really the technology, it's the people. So taking drastic measures like banning all user emails and let's use news announcements instead will force people to learn how I can go and create news and go back to the intranet. We also want to move all of the authoritative approved documents into the intranet. Now, this can be streamlined as part of someone's role, but when I go to the intranet and I search for the overtime policy, the expenses policy, or a how-to guide, I don't expect to find many results coming back for that search. I should only find one result if I'm looking for a particular policy. So this is where the file shares are completely outdated. We don't need them for this purpose. It makes documents a lot harder to surface to people. So we also want to think about how we're targeting content, because in my scenario earlier, as someone who works in the Scotland office, if I'm seeing tube delays from the London office, well, that's taking up screen real estate that doesn't that I really don't want. I only want to see the news that is important to me. Don't make me scan through all of the all of the news just to find the few relevant articles. I'm a busy person, I've got work to do. So let's use the idea of targeting to a role or a team or a department or a geographic location. Now, for the really important corporate news, we still want to make that visible to all users. We don't want to customize that experience so not everybody's seeing the key news, but we do want to try and make the intranet a lot more relevant to people, make it easier to consume content. Now, the third point here around those regular updates is, well, we see intranets deployed in a couple of structures normally. Either it's centrally controlled by a single team, like a marketing or a comms team. Now, there are situations where those people are solely responsible for creating the content. That places quite a large overhead on their time. They've also got to constantly think of new content in order to actually update the intranet and make it interesting. But what if we made the intranet, or updating the intranet, everybody's job? So anybody in the company could submit a story or submit a news article to that central team. Now they haven't got to go and think about it all. They're getting suggestions from other people. They might be getting a whole load of content from other people. Now their role just becomes more of a kind of content editor, and then approve it once the messaging is sort of correct. So let's go and sort of tweak some of the wording, and then we'll make it go live. That simplifies their role, but it also allows other people in the business to have a voice. So we can use that approval process to really control what flows up onto the intranet. Now, the fourth one was around the kind of the mobility of content. Now, with Office 365, your content is more and more available on the go. Office 365 is a fully mobile platform. They want Microsoft want to make this platform available to anyone on any device at any time. So we need to make sure that the intranet fits in line with that. So I want to make this intranet responsibly designed. I want to be able to view it on an iPad at home. I want to be able to view it on my mobile as I'm sort of walking to the train or whatever it is. So we really need to think about the page layout and how that's going to work. Now, SharePoint really helps with that, because now we can start to sort of lay content out on those pages. We can drag the corner of that page to change the dimensions, and then we can have this have the content reorganize itself on the fly based on the dimensions of your browser or based on the dimensions of your device. Now, we might have some complex applications that are currently built into your intranet. So how do we cater for those? How can I create an annual leave booking system so I can book my holiday on the go? Or how do I create an expenses application where I can take photos of my expenses and log them sort of whilst I'm sort of traveling on the train? Well, Office 365 comes to our rescue on that front as well. You may have heard of something called the Power Platform. This is the combination of Power Apps for mobile application development, Flow for automation, and Power BI for the reporting of your data. Now, we can use Power Apps to create these kind of complex pieces of functionality that we want embedded within our intranet, and now we can use them on the mobile as well. Now, obviously, with having all of this content out on mobiles, we do need to be a little bit careful. Microsoft provide a lot of security controls to allow organizations to really kind of tailor the security controls to their particular industry, to whatever regulatory body they have to adhere to. So we've got things like Intune for mobile device management. So this might be where my organization issues me a mobile and a laptop, and they control every configuration about that mobile and laptop. Or it could be mobile application management, also provided by Intune, where now I can say, well, control SharePoint from an organizational stance, but allow people to log in on their mobile. Bring your own mobile, that's fine. We still want to control that data. So you can do this kind of mix and match of approaches. Now, even if I'm controlling the application, we've also got other security controls like Azure AD, which provide things called conditional access. So if I'm working on my mobile and I'm in the office, so it knows the IP address, it knows me because I've logged in as myself, but it doesn't know the mobile, it might say you can have access to some content, but you can't have access to the highly confidential information. Or as a more extreme scenario, we might say, well, if I was in an internet cafe and I've logged in, well, I can use two-factor authentication from Azure AD to guarantee that my user credentials haven't been compromised, but my organization doesn't know the device I'm on, they don't know the location of the device that I'm on, they don't understand the IP address. So we can use conditional access to say, well, yes, you can view content on the intranet, but you cannot edit anything. Or you cannot go further than the intranet. You can't go to your team sites, your project sites, your confidential information. This is all I'm going to show you based on the conditions that you're currently browsing the site under. Now, the last point is around the kind of the governance of the content. We want to make sure that intranets are visible to everybody. We want to make sure that they are targeted content. We want to make sure that the content's updated regularly. But we also need to make sure that the content is reviewed regularly, because if we've got persistent information such as policies on there or office locations, things like that, well, we need to make sure that they are reviewed at a regular interval so that they're not out of date. I cannot have an authoritative source of information where my content's out of date. We'll have people basing decisions on the policy that they found. And if that policy is 5 years out of date and things have moved on, well, that could have serious consequences. So let's build in review cycles to this information. Let's also build in retention policies. So if I'm creating news at a corporate level, I might want to keep that for 10 years. If I'm creating news for a social event, I might only want to keep that for 3 years. So let's sort of identify types of content and retain it on different time periods. So what is the JumpStart? Well, many businesses are already evaluating or have moved to Office 365. And as part of that trial evaluation process, or as part of your current Office 365 environment, you will have SharePoint. It's part of your licensing from the E1 licensing and your E3 licensing. It's included in Small Business Premium. So you're nearly always going to get SharePoint as part of that licensing. But many organizations either don't realize they have it, or they don't understand what it's there for, or don't use it to its full potential. And there's a few reasons for that, but the main one really is that, well, SharePoint sites are a little bit dull. So here's one at the moment. This is like an out-of-the-box team site, and it allows us to go and create some documents, and it allows us to have a conversational newsfeed, although that's kind of been deprecated now. But what does it do? I don't really understand what I've got here. Well, what you've actually got is quite a complex Lego set. So SharePoint is made up of hundreds of different components. They're expanding on this with a regular cadence now, thanks to Office 365. But the problem with this is that understanding what you've got and understanding how to configure it can be quite complex. Microsoft are trying to make it easier to understand and easier to sort of make beautiful looking sites, but it's difficult. It's difficult from a time investment, from well, how do I structure this so that I don't end up taking my company down a kind of a cul-de-sac almost, where I built a great looking site, but now I can't extend it, or I've accidentally shared it because I've got some content in there I want to share externally, and now I've shared the whole intranet externally, and that's definitely not what I wanted. So getting the configuration right first time, getting a beautiful looking themed site, it takes time. It's a bit complex. So this is really where the JumpStart solution comes in, where we want to sort of take that boring site and we want to convert it into something that's a bit more feature rich. So it really sort of enables your intranet. It drives people to it because it's a better looking site. So what do we actually get with JumpStart? So the JumpStart solution effectively enables a very quick and cost-effective deployment of your internet solution on SharePoint. It's quite functional, it's a lot easier on the eye, but in order to build this, we're not providing you with a sealed box of components where you have to come back to us. What we're doing is using a mixture of pre-configured out-of-the-box components, some custom components, but then we're also using power-ups for the added functionality, the real complex functionality. So let's be upfront about this. If you wanted to go and replicate this, yes, you could do it. It's not a load of smoke and mirrors. It's not, like I say, you don't need a really heavy sort of development team to be able to do this, but it's the complexity that we want to sort of take away from you. We want to make sure that this is very quick and easy for you to sort of get started. So We then go and apply that some light touch branding. Now this could just be as simple as colors and logos. So the guidance from Microsoft now is, well, why sort of go to great efforts to go and apply branding when this is a site for internal users? I know what my branding is. I know what my logo is. So why do I need to have very specially rounded corners and things like that that we used to spend heaps of money on with old intranet projects? We also then want to consider everything else that's as part of an intranet, because what's the use of an intranet in a box solution where when I first start it up, I have no content and I have no governance rules around it, I need to go and provide training to people. So this is where we want to try and differentiate ourselves from other intranet in a box providers. We want to make sure that when you've got your intranet, we've wrapped the governance rules around it. We've discussed with you how long you want to keep content, and we'll automatically have those review cycles built in. We'll automatically have those retention cycles built in, so content moves out of the environment. But we also want to make sure that your important content from your current intranet is moved across. Because if your intranet's a ghost town on launch day, no one's going to come back to it. You've lost the adoption battle. So let's get those important documents in. Let's get the recent news in there. There's going to be different ways of doing it, but the important thing is that the content is there and some of the important content has been migrated across. Now we'll then also look at the training side of things, because if we're handing this over to either an internal training team or we're handing it over to a team of content editors, they need to understand how to use it. They need to understand how to create content. How do I publish content? How do I change the navigation? All these sort of things that we want you to use the platform. And we want you to use it as the starting point of your intranet journey. This shouldn't be the finished article, you know. Where are you going to take it? But we also want to provide end user guides so that on launch day, people can understand, well, how do I navigate around this? How do I interact with the intranet? What can I do with it? So the intranet in a box solution for us is much wider than that. It's an intranet in a box with governance, with content migration and training. So the benefits of all of this approach, well, we really want to simplify delivery. What you might take sort of weeks to be able to sort of train yourselves up and deliver, and that's not belittling anybody, but some of the training courses can be quite arduous, but we want to simplify that delivery and kind of really make it available within 10 to 12 days. So that's nothing to delivered. So in doing that, we also want to reduce project costs. So let's take out the really sort of heavy lifting training side of things, and let's sort of deploy it through scripts instead. And in this way, yes, we can accelerate those project timescales. We're not going to be stuck sitting in requirements gathering sessions 3 weeks from now, still trying to decide what it's going to look like. The really good thing with SharePoint is that it's infinitely customizable almost. But that's also a downside. Because it's infinitely customizable, trying to do a design workshop with involving everybody or a lot of stakeholders, you're really just going to be stuck on the start line. So let's put something in front of people. And let's say this is phase one. Now, if you don't like it, let's have a suggestions mechanism where now we can change things. But at least we've got something out there. At least we've got a modern platform that's well governed and will hopefully ensure that ongoing success and enthusiastic adoption across your organization. So let's take a quick peek at what we're actually providing. So we want to provide you with a homepage that really sort of aggregates all your information together. Give it that sort of important information, all goes onto your homepage. Let's use some targeting. So in the past, we've done these projects and we decided, well, what we need to deliver is kind of 80% of functionality that the customers have asked for. So we go out to these requirement gathering sessions and the same things come through. I want a homepage, I want news, I want documents. Well, okay, this is what we've built for you. But now it's available on mobiles and any device at any time. We're also providing a mechanism to deliver alerts to your company. Now, this can be delivered out, those alerts can appear on your mobile. They also appear as banners within the organization, sort of across all of the main pages, so that we can use those for, well, okay, there's a fire alarm test at 11 o'clock today, or the CRM system's going to be out of action from 5 o'clock onwards for maintenance, those sort of things. So we can set those delivery times, but we can also expire them once they're done. We also want to provide a central location for all news. So we might have different categories of news. We might have some corporate news, some department news, social news in a simplified setting. We might have something more specific, whether it's project news or regional news. That's entirely up to you. But we want to be able to pull all of that news together from wherever it is in the organization and show it in a central place. We also want a central location for all documents. So there should be that authoritative source of information that we talked about earlier. But it needs to be searchable. I need to be able to filter things. I might want to see everything that HR have published, or I might want to see all of the policies across all departments. So we've built that functionality into the JumpStart to enable you to specify the different types of documents that you have in your organization and the different departments that you have. Now we can go through and we can categorize all of that information to allow people to find information a lot more successfully and a lot faster. We also have a social area on the intranet, so that more and more we're spending more and more time at work, or at least socializing with our colleagues. So let's provide a space where we can bring people together. Where are we going to put those social events? Well, we don't really want or use emails anymore. We've banned them. So I need an area to have social information on there. Now, this information could be pushed up onto the homepage if it was a really special event, such as the Christmas party. Or we might want to say, well, actually, let's keep social news to one side. Not everybody likes to socialize with their colleagues for one reason or another, so don't show it me on the homepage. I'm quite happy navigating to it if I want to. Now, we've also added a personal page, because the intranet has to be personal. You're an integral part of the business. So let's create a page where it's centered around your working world. So I can go here and I can pull information from Outlook. So what are my recent emails, recent tasks? What documents have I worked on most recently? Or what meetings have what meetings should I be in right now? So it's trying to pull all that information together in one location, so you don't have to keep switching contexts. Now, from a search perspective, we're not doing anything fancy here. The out-of-the-box search that Microsoft provides is now better than ever. It provides security trim results. You can browse the content in line. You can promote results. So we're really, we don't need to do anything with this right now, but we can customize it. Microsoft on their roadmap are saying, well, you can add those traditional refiners back in, but that'll be an evolution of the project. We also, because of providing adoption as part of the package, we need somewhere to host our training material. So Microsoft have provided a learning portal where they allow us to aggregate all of the Microsoft curated content into your own environment. This stops people going off to Google or Bing and trying to find the documentation about how to send an email, or how do I create a meeting in Teams, things like that. So it brings it all together, and it allows you to just show the content within your intranet. But we can also add our own custom training into that. So as part of the JumpStart delivery, all of the JumpStart training is included within the learning portal. But it doesn't stop there, because you can add your own custom training material. If you've got a new telephony system, well, put the training guides in there. Better still, you could record a training video using Teams, which gets uploaded through Stream, the video platform, and then we can embed the video directly into the learning platform as well to make it really interactive. Now, on top of that, because everything in Office 365 is integrated in more and more, we could even go so far as to say, well, we're going to identify champions around the business. This might be your content editors, it might be a slightly different group of people, but those champions could also moderate Yammer groups if you want to really get social. And with the Yammer groups, now I can go to Yammer and say, well, I've looked in the training material, but I can't find what I'm after. So I want to ask a question and get the answer from that side of things. Now, for the really complex functionality, we've already pre-built some Power App components. So this is around leave management, expenses, whereabouts, and car parking. So fairly self-explanatory, the first two. The whereabouts came out, as a bit of a requirement from ourselves initially, because as a team of consultants, we're out and about, and if I haven't got access to someone's Outlook calendar, how do I know if they're going to be in the office or not? So we developed a whereabouts application that allowed me to say, well, I'm going to be out of the office today. I'm working at home. I'm working at a customer site. And when I do that, it puts an appointment into my Outlook calendar so that if someone does have access to the Outlook calendar, they can see it from that perspective. But it also links into the car parking app. So in the car parking app, I can reserve a car parking space if I'm going to be in the office. If I'm scheduled to be in the office and I actually say I'm going to be working from home, it releases my car parking spot so that someone else can use it. So all of these apps are kind of integrated in together. The leave management also integrates into whereabouts. If I book annual leave, it marks me as out of office. So they are really powerful applications and they work really well together. Right then, enough talk. Let's actually see something. So what I've got here is a demo environment from Microsoft that we've customized using the JumpStart solution. So from the JumpStart perspective, we've now got a kind of this reinvented homepage. We've got the consistent navigation. Now, the consistent navigation is driven by the intranet being a hub site. So I always want this to be consistent. I want to be able to get to different areas of my environment, even if they are departmental team sites. So in a really scaled out SharePoint environment, we might want to say, well, we're going to get rid of file shares and we're going to move everything into SharePoint. Well, that's great. Now let's build a navigation to allow me to seamlessly move from a collaborative environment into the informative intranet environment. We also have an area for this for our key news, so I can flick through the important corporate news and events. Now, because these are so integrated with other applications in Office 365, we can do things like this. I can have a video that's embedded from Stream. Lovely. So that's actually hosted on Stream. I could watch that completely separately using the Stream application if I wanted to, but the platform really gives us the benefit of being able to create very rich news articles, and we'll go through that in a minute. So we next have all of these quick links. So an intranet, it also needs to be a signpost to all of your interactive content. So whether that's how do I find people using an employee directory, or can I book annual leave? Can I get to the training, or can I fill in a feedback form? So I want to suggest new content. So that once we've got this intranet live, let's provide some feedback. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me how it can be improved. We want people to come back time and time again. So if there's something that's not there on launch day, let's build it in. Now, further down we go, we start to sort of see more content that's drawn from around the business. So we've got this news component. Now, this is from gathering news from the human resources site, from the retail site, from sales and marketing. We've also got these spotlight documents. Now, the documents are all stored within the intranet, but for some documents, we really want to push it under people's noses. We want to make sure that they're read. So we use a little bit of metadata to create a spotlight document. And by spotlight, we then aggregate it onto a homepage. But we don't just want content from within the business. we want to understand what's going on around the business as well. So with Circyl, we have a PR agency, and they go and create all our social media for us, help us with the blogs and things like that. So let's link out to Twitter. Let me understand what message is being pushed out from the business today. Because if I get a phone call that talks about a SharePoint health check, I'll be like, whoa, hang on, where's this come from? And if I'm not aware of the current Twitter messaging, well, if I am aware of the Twitter messaging, I'll understand where it's come from and be able to sort of talk them through that a lot more easily. We've also got the idea of being able to embed YouTube videos. So if you use YouTube or you've got specific content that you want people to view, well, we can do that. We can also aggregate diary dates together. So where events are happening, whether they're social events, whether they're training events, or whether they're sort of like town hall meetings. If you do those, they're kind of across the whole organization. When's the next town hall event? And these become quite useful to be able to see more information about the event. Where is it? You can embed maps in there and things like that. You can embed all the information to do with the specific event. And also, further down we go, you can also have big static links that take us to like the latest jobs, or how do I book a meeting room, things like that. So once we've got beyond the home page, I might want to dig a little deeper into some of the news. So rather than just showing me the few news articles that I currently have on my homepage, let me show everything else. So I come into news. I've still got my corporate news because I want to show that to everybody. But now I've got a split between departmental news and social news. And as part of the JumpStart, we talked to you about what types of news do you have? How do we want to actually sort of display that? So we might have 2 columns of news, maybe 3 columns of news, maybe different areas on the page. But what's really important, if I just drag this over to one side and just pop this up. So the same news center. Now on this side, I'm in Chrome, I'm logged in with my admin account. And on the left-hand side, I'm logged in as a different user. So I'm logged in as Megan over here. Now, Megan is not part of, she doesn't work with the training team. She doesn't work with human resources. She only works with the retail sales and marketing teams. So that's the news that she sees. Now over here, because I do work with the training team and I do work with HR, I'm seeing a slightly different set of news articles. So this is that power of content targeting and being able to say, well, you don't need to see this stuff because it's not relevant to your job. So let's hide that away. So if I want to go and create some more news, let's just hide Megan for the moment. I can come in and say, well, I want to create a new news post. And this is to be a quick survey. So as part of my survey, what would be really good if I could actually have a form built in, let's say. So here I can quickly add some news. Okay. And then I actually want to provide a form. So this is Microsoft Forms. This is their, if anyone uses InfoPath, by the way, start about thinking of moving to Power Apps in the first instance. Secondly, Forms is not a replacement for InfoPath. Forms is a bit more like SurveyMonkey. So if you're using SurveyMonkey at the moment and sending your information out of your business, you might want to think about using this instead. So I'm going to, in a very Blue Peter style, go create or go link to a form that I've created earlier. So on my well-being survey, it recognizes who's logged in, how happy am I at work, how healthy do I feel, extremely, always. So I can go and create this news article but then we can also do this approval mechanism. So if someone else was creating the content for me, say someone else in the HR team, they could create the content, but then submit it for approval. So if I just step back quickly, at the moment, this page is still in draft mode. So the editor or the creator of this page will be able to see it, and relevant approvers will be able to see it, but it's not visible to anyone else in the business. So I want to be able to say to people, well, yes, I can submit it for approval, but before I do that, we want to enable some targeting. So I'm going to change the category of this because I want it to show up in a certain location. I will show a category in a moment. All right, we'll start with audience. No. Oh, superb. One moment. Let's refresh the page. It always gets you, doesn't it? Okay, let's try that again. Happiness rating's just gone down because I've had to refresh. Okay, so if I come back to the properties, and you're still not playing ball, where have you gone? Oh, okay. Well, effectively, we want to be able to categorize the news that comes up here to say, well, is this corporate? Is this social? What kind of news are we working with? And if we are, oh, I missed a bit. Hang on. If I'm user error. So if I want to target this content at a specific group, so I want to target it to all human resources members of that team, then when I publish it, it will appear in their feed as human resources. But really, I want everybody in the business to be able to get to this particular post. So let's save that, and we'll come back to actually view it in a moment. So whenever we post a page or whenever we create a document, it's going to take a little while because the search index is working in the background to actually get that content out. So as the admin, I'm just going to approve that page, and now it's actually being published, so it's a live page. So we just have to wait for the search indexer to go and pull it through. Oh, well, that was quick. There we go. So now everybody is starting to get this corporate news that's been pushed through. If I had some, like I said, any document or any news article that has not been approved is not visible to everybody. So it works quite well from that mechanism. Now, in the same way, I can work with documents. So on the document side of things, I want to be able to categorize my documents by the type of document or by the department. But I also want to be able to spotlight documents. I want to really highlight documents, as well as being able to show any recent documents that have been created. So let's just have a quick look. If I go into see the policies that are available, and I can see I've got an employee review policy. So if I just go and select that policy, and I want to actually go and promote this policy, I want it to become a spotlight policy, so that this document will appear on the home page, and it will also appear on the home page of the document center as well. So right, wait for the properties to load again. Okay. So it knows that it's a HR document, it knows it's a policy, and then down here I want to be able to say, yes, it's a spotlight document. So again, I could have a review policy on this where we say, well, at the moment someone's made a change, so I'm going to put this into a pending status. It won't be a spotlight document until a relevant administrator, content approver, actually goes in and says, yes, I want to approve this particular content. Let's approve that. Okay, so now it's approved. And again, just wait for the search indexer. The search index will automatically change the content on our homepage and on our document center page. Okay. All right. So now my employee review policy has become a spotlight document up here. And so if I jump back to the home page, we should also see that the news has updated. We'll have right. So there's my employee review policy that's automatically come through. Here's my well-being survey that's come through. So in this way, this home page really has no static content because it's aggregating all that information from around the business. Right. Okay. So let's move on. The social hub. We talked about sort of having social information separate. Well, this is that location. We want to be able to still have social news, but now we also want to have social events that we want to organize. And if we really want to have those social conversations that involve everybody, well, let's take it into Yammer. So Yammer is also deeply integrated into SharePoint, where I can post a message directly to Yammer. Or if I want to, I can link out to Yammer to say, well, show me all of the groups that are available, because I want to go and join a different social group. I want to see that information in my feed. So maybe it's the Cycle to Work scheme, maybe it's another one. So what recommended groups? Okay, we haven't got any right now, but in this way, we can start to make the intranet more social and give people a better reason to come back here. We also talked about the making it more personal. So here on this page, it's everything about you. So what meetings do you have? If you've got contacts stored in Outlook, tasks in Outlook, the sites, the documents that you've used recently, and any emails that have been sent to you recently. So we can also say, well, show me some, we could embed the whereabouts application directly in. So rather than it being a separate Power App, I can say, well, where is everybody today? So show me the members of my immediate team, or show me the whole company. I want to be able to see what's going on over the next 2 weeks. So I said, this is a Power App. You could use it just on your mobile device. If I want to see people that are working elsewhere today, well, Megan's working from home today. And if I move to Friday, yeah, she's working from home on Friday as well. Whereas I can still go and see who else is around. So it's quite a powerful little application. Now, if I don't know who I need to talk to, well, we can use the employee directory. So this gives us that mechanism to be able to say, well, I need to find somebody, I need to understand what they do and how do I get in contact with them. So this is information that's pulled from another Office 365 service called Delve. So Delve is your personal profile. It's all about you. And what we can do with Delve is kind of open up, see that profile, see some information about you, but also see all the documents that you've worked on. All these documents are secured to you, so it's a slightly different sort of location to the personal page, but it's hugely valuable to understand who you work with around the business, what you've been working on, but also be able to provide some information so that other people in the business can find the right person first time. I can go and search for a particular skill and it will come up because I've registered it with my Delve profile. So if we just go back to the intranet, the last thing that I want to show you is the training portal. So that training portal, as I mentioned earlier, is just the source of all your learning material within the organization embedded within the intranet. The curated Microsoft content combined with your own internally curated content. So on here, I can set up some news to say what training is going to be run and when is the training going to be run. We can then also sort of dip into the Microsoft specific training to say, well, show me the content from Microsoft. Let me understand how to use Outlooks or how to get the best out of Teams. So within here, I could have this videos curated by Microsoft. It's stored on their servers, but I can now quickly be able to get to that training without having to sort of spend ages searching around on Google or Bing. And what we also have is that I want to be able to ask questions. Maybe I want to have an area that says, well, here's how to get in touch with the help desk. So this might be your internal support system that it links out to. It might be an email that's generated out to KISS support desk if you're on a fully managed contract. So it's trying to sort of provide a location where we can get all your information together in one simple place. Right, let's just switch back to the presentation. We'll kind of wrap up where we are. So in terms of how we run the JumpStart engagement, we've already said it's quite lightweight in terms of the number of days. So 10 to 12 days, depending on how much of it we're configuring, how much configuration is going in from your side. So in order to understand the configuration, we have to have a requirements workshop. So we're only having 1 day of requirements. And in that time, we do cover quite a bit, but we've limited the amount of configurations that we're going to use, or the amount of functionality that we're going to configure rather, because there is so much configuration. We could spend days in workshops really getting things right, but instead we want to understand about your department structure, the categories of news, the categories of documents that you have. Do you want all elements of JumpStart switched on, or you might not want some of them turned on? Are we going to link out to social feeds, and if we are, what are those social feeds? So we need to understand that. We also need to understand your approach to migration. We see a lot of companies that, if they've already got a SharePoint environment, might say, migrate everything across and let's apply the governance rules. Or it might be, well, we've got a legacy environment. There's only a few things that are really important, so can we just take those? So we do migrate some content as part of the JumpStart solution. But for more complex migrations, we might have to quote slightly separately for that. So we also want to, as part of the engagement, we'll obviously go and implement the whole JumpStart solution in line with the identified requirements, migrate the content, as I've said, and we're also doing those 2 half-day solution owner training workshops. So helping your content editors understand how to use the environment, how to edit content, how do I publish content, all of those things. You get the end user guides that are built into the training portal, and you also get a couple of days to help you with further customization and content creation. Like we said, once you've got this platform, hopefully it's going to spark a lot of ideas in the organization. Hopefully it is literally the starting point of your new platform, your new intranet. So we really want to help people get started so they can look at these things. We do also consider the creation of functional intranet apps. You can buy the ones that we've already created if you want to, or if you've got specific apps that you have, we'll have to sort of evaluate those to decide the best approach to getting those into the intranet. Now, of everything, the one thing I've got to enforce is that the adoption side of things is really key to change, because we can put all this new flashy technology in, but unless we're doing some proper training and we're getting it rolled out to people and we're making them aware that the training portal exists, well, potentially it's not going to be adopted. Now, too many projects within SharePoint, within Office 365 generally, are kind of, well, let's just roll it out there and see, kind of in line with Microsoft's marketing sort of spiel. But if you just roll it out there with no governance and no training or adoption, you're going to get one of two scenarios. You're going to get a mass of sort of unused sites potentially, because people have created them. It's sort of Mike's test site or Mike's test team, and then it's never going to be used again, but it's consuming your resources, or you haven't done any training. So people aren't coming back. People aren't using the sites that are well governed and provided for them. So we've got to bear those two things in mind, and that's why we really try and address those points as part of the engagement. So next steps. How do I get involved? What do I do? So we are offering a free on-site session. We'll walk your stakeholders through the entire solution. We will evaluate your current intranet functionality, because where you might have those key applications that have been custom built, let's look at those now, identify them, so we can build out a cost for how we'd convert that to a Power App. We also evaluate your current intranet content. So when we come to the requirements gathering workshop and you say, we want to move everything, and we can tell you, well, you've got 20 gig of content and you've only recently looked at 5 documents in the last 6 months, we can start to challenge that migration approach. But once we understand all of that, we can give you a complete cost for your new intranet. Now for the base JumpStart, we're offering that at 15 grand. So that includes everything on this previous slide, with the exception of the creation of intranet apps for the Power Platform. Apart from the base cost, we then have a 3 grand a year support contract. So on an ongoing basis, you're only paying 3,000 for the intranet solution. We will also offer things like drawdown days. So if the 2 additional days that we build in are not quite enough, you can always buy more. Typically, we see companies buy 12 days, so that 1 a month, we can go in, we can sort of invigorate the intranet, we can suggest ways of approaching certain projects internally, or we can sort of take ownership of a whole project on your behalf. So, so thank you for your time. We're going to send out the link to the recording. There's a whole load of resources on our website. So go to circyl.co.uk, go to the resources link, get us on Twitter, get us on LinkedIn, contact us at our email address if you'd like. But we're planning on doing some more webinars like this. So in a couple of months, we're either going to cover everything you get in Office 365, so it's going to be a really fast and furious fly through all of the applications in 365 from your E3 licensing perspective, or we're going to do a kind of an overview of Teams. It's up for internal discussion at the moment, but as soon as we know which one of those, you'll start to see the messaging go out on all our social feeds. Yeah. So let's just have a quick look at, I just want to check the Q&A. And everyone's been really quiet. So at the moment, there's no questions come through. So what I'm going to do is I will hang on for a few more minutes. If people have got specific questions, put them in the Q&A and I will answer them. If you would rather send us an email, send me an email. The contact details are, or either go through inquiries, or my personal email address is included in the deck that you'll receive. It's michael.owen@circyl.co.uk. Okay, so thank you for your time. I'll hold on a little bit longer for any questions. So we've had a question around branding. We'd recommend a light touch to branding. This is basically because Microsoft own the master page. You can apply branding packages to it. There's various sort of off the peg packages like that that you can customize. But generally, Microsoft are sort of going with a keep the branding light, use colors, use some fonts, use some logos, things like that, but don't go too heavy into it, because things like the master page that we could change in previous iterations of the product is not ours to control anymore. So yes, but with caveats, I'm afraid. Okay, so we're just over the hour now. If there are no more questions, I'm going to end the webinar, and we'll send out a link to the recording fairly shortly. So thank you for your time once again, and hopefully speak to you again quite soon.